The full pocket, it's easy to see the humor in the world as a so the full pocket, it's easy to see the spite in the world as a it's easy to see the humor. Either way, it's a spite and try to teach. Either way, actually, stay far away. Either way, it must be more much direction. The crow with a fucked foot swooped down and landed on the bar. The crow with a fucked foot swooped down and landed on the crow with a fucked foot. The second half of the bus went well. The buskers made every step back to the second half of the bus went well. The second side is obscurity and sit the door nice. Every step back to the climb inside is obscurity and sit the door. Inside is obscurity and sit the door nice and shut. The busker lay there that night, inside his sleeping bag under the torchlight, waiting for the little demons to emerge. The bites had cooled down, and he refused to let his skin be penetrated again. The small spider on the roof of the tent had caught one of them in its wee web. Great, mate. Teamwork. The busker knew his efforts would be futile in the end. They would get to him like they always did. He would fall asleep eventually, and they would come. All the while the little spider would be feasting on his catch, essentially feasting on the blood of the busker himself. If the little spider was getting a good meal in return for the busker's itching, that made it slightly less shite, he supposed. At 10 to 4 they would gather. Anticipation filled the air. Silence. Old Henk waited, perched on his mobility scooter next to Yella, who was trying to ignore Bert, who was having his usual conversation with himself. Most of the group wore expressions similar to those found on public transport. Somber, lifeless, passing time. 4 o'clock would arrive. The sound of the big doors being unlocked caused a flurry of activity amongst the group. Old Henk sprung up from his mobility scooter and approached the door. A general chatter fluttered around, as if they'd all just been awoken from a nap. The doors spread wide open like the gates of heaven. The busker was happy to be a part of the 10 to 4 crowd for the moment. How long he would remain a member was not clear. Routine can be a friend or a foe, and each of those can become the other. 2. Fuck off, mate. 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 It was amusing to observe the strange look some people gave him. Some people looked at him like he was a fucking alien, daft or something. Some people would glare at him in firm disapproval of this foreigner on their street. Many would smile, some would wink, some would hang around for 5 songs and then fuck off without casting a coin. The luck of the busk was on the busker's side on this day. People were being very generous with their €2 coins. Days like Monday or Tuesday, people were more likely to give Lord Byron a 20 or a 10-cent piece. But on this day, people could smell the weekend in the sun-drenched air, and the generosity was flowing like the Heineken. His long, curly blonde hair concealed a snarl above a thumping chest, and the sound of a shrieking guitar cut through the testosterone that filled the sweaty club. The crowd was there to see him. They screamed his name. The snarl slipped into a smile for a moment. Then he saw a kid wearing a Metallica shirt. His fingers slipped and he suddenly didn't know how the song went. He saw a second and a third Metallica shirt before everyone seemed to have them. They were no longer playing Hangar 18, but Call of Cthulhu instead. The band laughed at him as they too revealed their Metallica t-shirts. The busker woke suddenly. The finer details of the dream faded quickly.
Was all the busker needed, standing as good as naked, arguing massage prices with a 50-year-old Chinese woman in a town in the middle of nowhere. "1 hour massage, please," he said. The 20-euro one." This was all the busker needed, standing as good as naked, arguing massage prices with a 50-year-old Chinese woman in a town in the middle of nowhere. "1 hour massage, please," he said. The 20-euro one." "1 hour massage, please," he said. The 20-euro one."
The busker realized that if he was indeed in a Friday the 13th movie, he would be picked off long before the third act. He was alone in a tent on his own journey. He would be on the receiving end of a machete or something similar while the main characters were being established. At that point where the audience starts thinking, there hasn't been a kill for a while, that's when you get it. Just like the girl with the banana in the final chapter, or Annie from the first one. That's who the busker would be. Night came, and the lightning and the rain arrived. An actual third act thunderstorm. People who've seen any number of Friday films know that the third act needs a storm. He reckoned if he was going to get axed, it would happen soon. The longer time went on without being visited by a 7-foot invincible mute with a machete, the busker started to worry he might be integral to the finale. It was just safer to be quiet. After all that is to follow, the busker realized there was an elevator. Alkmaar had not been a great host. After a full day of cycling, he was turned away from the campsite because the grass in the tent field isn't ready. The smug prick in the reception of that place was determined to be as unhelpful as possible. The busker tried a bit of busking, but the police soon put a stop to it, just as smugly as the campsite guy. He did make enough, however, to afford a train ticket. Alkmaar Central Station was now his destination. He had all his belongings on his person. Panniers contained his clothes, his tent and sleeping bag was strapped to the back of the bike, his guitar, as always, on his back with Lord Byron, his coin hat, sitting on the top, causing it to look uncannily like the busker was carrying a small person around on his back. The weight of all the stuff on the bike made it a nightmare to negotiate. It was a cheap bike, not made to carry heavy loads. He arrived at the train station and spent 10 minutes securing his bike somewhere it wasn't going to fall and crush someone's foot. He didn't trust ticket machines, so he entered the building with the hope of finding a desk. He found just that. He always enjoyed the look on people's faces when he pulled out the coins. A €20 train ticket paid for in 10s, 20s and 50s, produced from an Albert Heijn shopping bag, with Lord Byron gazing over his shoulder as he counted. One ticket to Haarlem, one way, with a bike, platform 2B. The busker returned to his bike and had himself a smoke. That's when he saw them. These stairs were ridiculous. It was like something from ancient Rome. He searched the signs, looking for platform 2B. It was up the stairs. As the busker approached the temple-like structure, he wondered how the fuck he was going to make it. In the Netherlands, most staircases outside had a little wedge that your bike wheel slotted into to allow you to push it up. This staircase had one of them, but it was so vertical it made it nearly impossible to get the wheel in. With a great heave, the busker made a few steps up. He had to keep going. That was the only way. He had to do the whole thing in one heave. He glanced up at the task ahead of him. The sweat had already started running down his brow. He went for it. The tires squeaked and moaned against the metal. His arm muscles screamed for mercy. He closed his eyes and heaved, his legs pushing him on. It was like ice cold in Alkmaar. He was about halfway up the structure when he could push no further. He came to an awkward halt, struggling to support the weight of the bundle. It might as well have been a sheer drop behind him. Ahead was only steps, endless steps. The busker groaned and cursed stairs in general. He had no choice. He had to make it. There was no way back. He suddenly thought of Conan. There's a scene in Conan the Destroyer when the titular character and Bombata use their immense strength to lift a huge stone door. They flex their obscene muscles and succeed in escaping the evil wizard protecting the magic horn. Busker had not the muscular power of the pair of sword-wielding, monster-slaying characters, but he had the will to succeed, and that was all he needed. With Arnie's flexing exterior held solidly in the busker's mind, he heaved. The Conan soundtrack began playing in his head as he inched further and further up. The problem was, the further he made it, the further there was to fall. Oddly enough, the busker always preferred Conan the Destroyer to Conan the Barbarian. He knew the original was a superior film, but the sequel was just nuts. He always liked the good old quest plot. Someone's destiny to go on a journey, and along the way they gather the team and overcome obstacles. He was so close to the top now. It was just a few more steps. His arms were shaking, his legs were weakening. He needed Bombata to come and give him a hand. With an almighty shout of "Grom!" he forced the beast over the top and onto level ground. He panted and tried to steady himself. He was hit with a mighty head rush. The busker was no Conan, no Bombata, or even the little guy with an eye who was played by Bob from Batman. He'd be fucked if he had to escape a fortress, slay a monster, and save a princess after that.
I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm
Busker remembered the thrill of it all. He remembered how they thought the rat had fucked off and they all got back inside the tent. It wasn't long before the silence was broken. It was the same girl that screamed again. What made it worse was that he could hear the rat moving around within their tent before the scream came. The same routine continued for a further 2 hours. Rat squeal, everybody screaming, running out of the tent, thinking the coast was clear and getting back in the tent. And by that point, the screaming girl was beyond consoling. The busker lay there in his own tent, safe. That poor girl did not get any sleep. Every little sound was a rat. As far as she knew, she would wake up with some visitors in her sleeping bag. She wasn't about to let that happen. The busker felt sorry for her. By that point, anyone who didn't was a psychopath. For starters, sharing a tent with 5 or 6 other people, including boys, is going to be difficult. They didn't seem like a party group, more like a tour group. The girl was probably talked into it by her mates. They probably told her it would be good for her. Of the many things her mother would have warned her about Amsterdam, A rat invasion in the tent was likely not on the list. As far as the busker could remember, the German student's tent was abandoned by the time he woke up. He never saw the group again. The big Native American-style tent was soon dismantled by the staff and taken away. The busker never learned what happened in the hours between him falling asleep and waking. The busker lay there under the tree in his sleeping bag, considerably less comfortable than he had been. He began to wonder what happened to the people who left the tent that he borrowed 4 years ago. He glanced around, looking for any movement. His eyelids were getting heavier and heavier. He soon would be at the mercy of a virus-fueled, fatigue-induced sleep. He seriously hoped he wasn't going to be woken by the sound of tiny feet and the feel of tiny teeth. There's always the taste of meat when Christoph licks her feet, but he likes her too much to deny her the touch of his tongue in the late summer heat. When Christoph licks her feet, when Christoph licks her feet, the late summer heat, the late summer heat. There's always the taste of meat when Christoph licks her feet, but he likes her too much to deny her the touch of his tongue in the late summer heat. When Christoph licks her feet, when Christoph licks her feet, the late summer heat, 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 the late summer heat. There's always the taste of meat when Christoph licks her feet, but he likes her too much to deny her the touch of his tongue in the late summer heat. There once was a girl in town who'd kill anyone for a pound. She'll drug your drink behind a wink, she'll make sure you'll never be found. There once was a guy in a pit, he was off his tits, mosh, squash, bones and bits. There once was a mouldy plate he saw as he shagged his date. Behind the bed, beneath her head, the loving would have to wait. There once was a guy all alone who just loved the sight of bone. So he peeled the skin off from his shin and grinned as the bone was shin. There once was a man in the corner who thought he was David Warner. He was writing a script at home in his crypt and hoping to hire James Horner. There once was a dog at the gate of a house that was grand, not great. He'd bite off the toes of any who chose to trespass on master's estate. There once was a girl on the till, serving the person she'd kill. He never saw the chicken was raw, but she'd seen her name on his will. The menu that the woman produced upon her return was not the same as the one in the window. This one said €25 for 1 hour full-body Chinese massage, not 20. The busker ruffled through his jacket pockets, genuinely unsure if he had another fiver. One hand stayed locked on the towel. He wasn't going to let it abandon him. After a less than relaxing start, the massage began. Lying with his face in a hole was not the best. It didn't seem to fit right. His nose was getting all blocked and he found himself dribbling. The hour was a long one. If anything, he was feeling worse as the massage approached its end point. The busker was left to dress himself with Lord Byron watching from the corner of the room. His silence spoke volumes. It said, "You're gonna miss that €25." It was true. There once was a man in a bin, always convinced he would win. Enough was enough, he took all his stuff and slid through the gap 'cause he's thin. There might be a man just upstairs who peeps down below when he dares. He'll catch your eye, he'll make you cry, but he's kind to whoever he scares. There once was a slug on the ground, it was all shriveled, dry and brown. I gave it a drink and stopped to think, what if I wasn't around? There once was a girl on her four clothes, who had to hold her nose. As she entered the building, the smell was unyielding, the cook never washes his clothes. There once was a creep from the beach, who people called the leech. He'd hide in the sand and grab your hand and capture your power of speech. There once was a cunt at the table, unhinged and unstable. He put down his fork, ignored his pork, and strangled the host with a cable. There once was a spider in her hair. She didn't see it, but it was there, creeping around, her locks of brown. Asleep tonight, she's unaware. The day began with a heroic moment. A true Indiana Jones moment. The wind was fierce as the busker walked into town. His bike was fucked. One foot in front of the other was the way it had to be. A gust with extra anger hit the busker and Lord Byron lost his hat. The busker could feel it flying free of its perch atop the head of the case guitar on his back. He got a fingertip to it but couldn't get a grip. The wind took the hat across the road towards the slope. The busker raced after it, disregarding the cars. The busker wasn't built for speed, but when the situation required it, he could surprise himself. The hat was getting closer and closer to the water's edge. If he lunged and missed it, it would be gone. If he lunged too hard, he would be in the slope. The timing had to be perfect. All thought left the busker's windswept head. He dove at the hat, hand outstretched. The right side of his body hit the grass. His left hand crashed down upon the hat. If he'd slid a foot further, he'd be in the slope. Not only would he be in the slope, but all his possessions would be fucked. Still flat out on the grass, he held the hat high in the air and shouted, "Fucking yes!" It was the first time he truly felt like Indiana Jones. He emerged from the safety of his tent. It was hellish. Fallen branches littered the field, victims of the morning. He clutched his bundle of clothes and towels and ran for it. He felt the cold wetness spread within his shoes. It was the kind of rain that soaks you instantly. It was like Glasgow rain. But this storm had Dutch wind added to the mix. You don't fuck with Dutch wind. The fire of his tent smiled. Then I so danced. The fire of his tent smiled. Then I so danced. The fire of his tent smiled. Then I so danced. The fire of his tent smiled. Then I so danced. The fire of his tent smiled. Then I so danced. The fire of his tent smiled. Then I so danced. The fire of his tent smiled. Then I so danced. The fire of his tent smiled. Then I so danced. The sun had gone all the way down by the time the busker went walking. The tent was not where he wanted to be on this night. The rain was still falling, but it was humid. He went to visit the chickens. He couldn't tell if they were pleased to see him. Sometimes he would sing to them, and they would sing back, in their own little way. The pig didn't usually sing, he just grunted. This night was different. The pig turned out to be in good voice. The busker was always wary of annoying the other campers, so he cut short the singing. He wished them sweet dreams and went on his way. He noticed he had his guitar with him, but he'd forgotten his shoes. No matter, he didn't need them yet. The moon was now in a commanding position. It was keeping a close eye on the busker. He knew it. He went for a piss and observed a spider nestled within a tear of the spare roll of toilet paper. He smiled darkly to himself. Walking into the toilets with no shoes on was not a great idea, it turned out. The humid air felt quite a lot colder now that the busker was in the river. The ripples were fantastic and grand. The moonlight skimmed across everything around. The wind was now a whip, though. It was like being in the showers at 9 in the morning and someone leaves the door open. The water itself gave no comfort in this case. At least in the shower, the water's hot. The busker was now trapped in a world of cold. Warmth was nowhere around. He was just there, lingering between the freezing water and the bitter wind. The showers at this particular campsite were fantastic, free of charge, adjustable temperature and jet power. The busker cowered beneath the jet, immersed in the steaming heat. An unknown amount of time later, the busker had finally made it back to his tent and shivered himself to sleep. He climbed inside his obscurity and zipped the door nice and shut. The world wouldn't get in. He climbed inside his obscurity and zipped the door nice and shut. The world wouldn't get in. He climbed inside his obscurity and zipped the door nice and shut. The world wouldn't get in. He climbed inside his obscurity and zipped the door nice and shut. The world wouldn't get in. He climbed inside his obscurity and zipped the door nice and shut. The world wouldn't get in. He climbed inside his obscurity and zipped the door nice and shut. The world wouldn't get in, get in, get in, get in, get in, get in. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on.
An old lady dropped a needle into the case and smiled.
Walk on.
An old lady dropped a needle into the case and smiled. Yes.
Walk on.
An old lady dropped a needle into the case and smiled. Yes.
Walk on.
An old lady dropped a needle into the case and smiled. Yes.
Walk on.
An old lady dropped a needle into the case and smiled. Yes. He thought about a recent recording. He thought about a recent